Now for this one, ready? All right. In order to power this ventilator on, you can do it a couple ways. This is your on-off switch right here. Now be careful when you use this because right now it lights up. It's going to beep. It's going to make a little noise, but it's in standby. It is not active. So if you want to activate the ventilator, you have to put it in one of the modes up here. For this particular checkoff, we're going to use the volume control mode, and we're also going to use pressure control. As you can see looking at the screen here, we have the ability to use it for adult patients, pediatric patients, as well as neonatal patients. Checkoff wise, you may have a neonatal patient that requires the use of this ventilator, or you could have a pediatric patient, which would actually allow us to be able to use either pressure control or volume control. Okay? All right. So let's reset everything.
Pressure control for neonates?
Only pressure control. Okay? All right, so we're going back. We're in our standby mode. So what type of patient do you want, Josh?
How about neonate?
All right, so Josh wants a neonatal patient, so we have it set on neonate, and we're going to use pressure control for that patient. So we turn it on, it lights up, it flashes at us. Our silence button is here, so we flip that down and we have silence for 2 minutes. Looking at the general makeup of our panel here, we have our mode, so adult, pediatric, neonate. Everything below that primarily deals with pressure. High pressure alarm. Instead of peak inspiratory pressure or peak airway pressure, this thing is called pressure control level above peak. Pressure control, that's what this thing is. Below that we have pressure support, in which we will not use for checkoffs. PEEP and sensitivity, because that is a negative pressure that we generate. Okay, so that's a pressure panel there. Everything dealing with I/E ratios or rates, I times, E times, is in this panel. Respiratory pattern. With this, we have a CMV rate knob. We have our inspiratory time percent. Instead of I time, it's called percentage. We have a pause time that we would use if we were trying to get static compliance. Inspiratory rise time. That is the slope of the breath, how steep you want that breath to go in. And then we have SIMV. We will not focus on the use of SIMV for this checkoff. Anything dealing with volume, if it's a tidal volume, if it's a minute volume alarms, everything is here on this panel. And then your actual alarms are here. Silence and reset are here. If we're doing a pause for auto PEEP or that plateau pressure, we would actually flip a knob here in order to get that. Up at the top here is our FiO2, and then we have our different modes of ventilation, of how we want to ventilate our patient. All right, so other things we need to look at are if it's in green are set values. If it's in red, those are measured values. Green is what we have set. Red are the results of what we have set. So these are the monitored values. The orange knobs that you see are alarms. We have a low minute ventilation, high minute ventilation, high pressure. Those are the only 3 alarms we have for this ventilator. These knobs, which are orange and gray, well, they're what we call dependent knobs, meaning that we can set something, we can set one of these values, but just realize it may be influenced by something else. So an example of that is right now, I'm going to, for demonstration purposes, just adjust my peak inspiratory pressure. Okay? And let's max out my alarm so it doesn't beep at us. All right, so notice my peak inspiratory pressure, which is right here. I'm going up and down on that. All right? So right now my peak inspiratory pressure looks like it's on 30. Well, what if I want to add PEEP to the circuit? Well, notice what happens when I adjust my PEEP. it goes up. All right, so it's dependent. So even though I can set this, just realize that when I start setting my peak, I now change my peak inspiratory pressure. So that's what we mean when we say these are dependent knobs here. All right, so the best thing that I would suggest is when you're setting this ventilator up, go ahead and put in your peak first. That may be the best thing for you in order to make sure that you set the right amount of peak pressures. All right. So we'll set 5 of peak. All right. So I'm getting about 4. All right. So we have our PEEP there. Our sensitivity is here. Notice sensitivity goes up and down. All right. And so now we have 5 of PEEP, and let's just say I want 15 of pressure here. All right, so I'll make the adjustment, and mathematically, where should this value be? 20. And why did you say 20? How do you get 20? All right, so your peak inspiratory pressure plus your PEEP should be 20. All right, so we make the adjustment to 20, and there we go, about 20 there. All right, so we have a numerical display here. All right, so we're comfortable with our pressures now. We're good. All right, so we have our PEEP and our peak inspiratory pressure. Now let's set our respiratory rate. Let's say we want a rate of 60. You'll notice that when I make adjustments to my rate, my I time is also going to fluctuate. It's going to be adjusted as well. So going up to a rate of 60. All right. So now my rate has gone up. My rate has gone up, and notice what happened to my I time. Well, let's say I don't want 0.19 I time. Let me make adjustments to that. Notice my I time can be adjusted, but my rate doesn't do anything. So in this particular case, if it ever gets to a point to where your respiratory rate and your I time are changing, the respiratory rate is more important than your I time. All right, so it takes precedent over your I time. All right, so we'll go back up to 60. All right, so now we have our rate set on 60. With the I time, remember, the rate wins out in this particular relationship. Pause time is not present. The rise time. The thing about servo is pretty much, if it's green, green is good. So if you forget some of these values and where they need to be set, green is always kind of like your safe zone. Just put it on green and it should be okay. So with your rise time, you can set it there. But realistically, what dictates how we set the rise time? Say it again.
You said it right.
Say it again. Okay. Respiratory rate, patient's inspiratory effort. You know, if it looks like they're struggling to breathe.
Or air hungry.
All right. So yeah. So you will make adjustments in the rise time. You do not receive an order for rise time. You talk about rise time to most people, they don't know what you're talking about. But rise time is one of those tools that we have at our disposal. SIMV, as I mentioned before, we're not going to focus on SIMV, but if we were in SIMV mode, that is how we would use, or that's how we would set our rate there. Okay? All right, so the next thing that we do, we go over here to our volume panel. Now remember, we don't have a tidal volume here because we are in what mode?
Pressure control.
Pressure control, right. But as a result of the pressure we have set, we can see a volume. Okay, we can see a tidal volume, and that is what is displayed there. Looking at our minute ventilation, it's roughly 0.80. What's our rule on the alarms?
Two.
All right, so we can do 2 above, 2 below. We move in 2s and 4s. Well, we can actually, because this is 0.80, we can do 0.2 above and 0.2 below. So my high alarm should be set where? At 1. All right, now these are our alarms. if by chance, if you draw this ventilator and it's alarming at you and this thing is flashing, well, flashing is bad. Flashing means that you don't have it set appropriately, all right? So my upper alarm limit, notice once I make the adjustment, how it would actually stop flashing. All right? So I now have my alarm set at the appropriate setting. If I'm measuring at 0.8, well, my low alarm limit should be roughly 0.6. Okay? So the alarms are set. So it acts more so like a bracket than anything else. You want your breath, your minute ventilation. This number right here is a reflection of that right there. So those two things correspond with one another. Be careful about these alarms because they can actually travel from this side of the bar to this side. Here's our example using our high pressure alarm. All right, so it's over here on the other side. The low pressure alarm, low minute ventilation alarm can do that as well. All right, and notice that it starts flashing. I point that out because from a checkoff perspective, this could be what you walk into with the alarms. Okay? Well, they're both flashing at you. They're not set appropriately. And as long as they're set like this, they're going to flash. And notice, it's going to tell you what's wrong up here on the bar there. So just make sure that you can set these appropriately. All right, so those are the alarms. Then we have any other alarms that are displayed there. FiO2 here, we'll put them on 21%, and that's it. So, questions, comments, concerns about this?
Why that's flashing?
What, this one?
Yeah.
O2 concentration.
Okay.
We have the O2 sensor disabled.
When you were messing with the alarms over here, I noticed it changed to 1 where the green 60 is. It said 1 and then it like flashed with parentheses like T something. TS behind it. When you mess with those alarms, the
These
orange-
alarms?
I don't remember which one it was.
On the other side.
And that pulled up a 1.00 and then behind it ran behind it and said parentheses T something or TS or something like that.
Where was that displayed again?
Right here.
Oh, I didn't catch it.
Yeah, I didn't either.
It made a beep noise right up before it changed. I just happened to see it out of the corner of my eye when it changed.
Okay.
Question. Can I buy pot from you?
Yeah.
That would.
What?
Nappy.